Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric and our continuing series, The Unported Playlist, where we take a look at some of my favorite unported arcade games of all time. Today we're taking a look at 1992's Under Fire from Taito. Now this is one of my favorite light gun shooters of all time, but that's not because it's good. Functionally it is fine, but it is so insanely 90s stupid that I absolutely love the game for the wrong reasons. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like, subscribe, and that notification bell definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. But like I said just previously, I love Under Fire for all of the wrong reasons, and that is because this game is just absolute 90s jank. You can see that all of the graphics, all of the art, all of the characters are digitized photographs, animations, small pieces of film. It's just trying to make it look like lifelike graphics. But my favorite part is, and maybe you're not as old as I am, maybe you didn't live through the 90s. Now in 92, I was only, let's see here, 8 years old. But this is what the 90s looked like. All of this ridiculous clothing and all of this ridiculous hair. It's just weird. And Taito wanted to do some urban inner city, light gun game. And you have all these gangsters, all these different type of people, dudes wearing bandanas, but they're all just clearly extra actors not doing a very good job. It's like they threw a sweatshirt and a skull cap on them or a toque and said, hey, that's what you're going to do. And again, I don't know what it is with light gun games, but Carnival has a carousel. Haunted Mansion 2 has a carousel. Under Fire has a carousel. It seems like the circus is just a place that you go when you play a light gun game. It's just ridiculous. And this is the first level in the game. It just starts you out at a carnival and there's people running by you in dog costumes holding balloons. It's a really weird level to start the game with because it gets much more serious as it goes on. But honestly, it's probably a great level to start because it shows you just how dumb and ridiculous this game is. Because after you get the status report, you get this like 4-frame animation of soldiers just running by, and then it cuts immediately to the next level. It's like they spent time working on it, but they decided that 4 frames of animation were fine to show human feet running forward. It just doesn't work, even though it works perfectly. This is like the classic cult B movie. If, a really good light gun game was Lethal Weapon, this is like the direct to VHS version of that game as far as like 80s or 90s action movies are concerned. But every time I play it, it puts a gigantic smile on my face, and isn't that enough to make it a good game? Because I will say mechanically, it's perfectly fine. It's a good light gun shooter. You aim at something, you pull the trigger, it works. I mean, the first boss here jumps out of that dog costume, and he's got a rocket launcher in his arms, and that's just... I think it's just dumb. It's stupid. It's nonsensical, but yet I love it for that. Because honestly, isn't the House of the Dead stupid in and of itself? It's zombies in a mansion. Isn't something like Evil Night dumb? It's zombies in a mansion. Like Carnival is carnival zombies. We shouldn't really pretend these games are trying to be serious because they're not. But jumping ahead to round 4, we got the crack house raid. And if there's anything more 90s than talking about crack houses, I don't know what there is, because it seems like in the 90s, crack was just always on the news. And Taito's like, you know what? This is American. Crack houses. Let's go with that. But I love that everyone in the crack house is wearing a suit. They're not wearing what I would assume to be crackhead clothing. They're wearing suits and ties. So this must be a mob-run crack house. And then when you go inside, there's innocent victims running by as well. You're going to see a guy very shortly run by with a briefcase in his hand saying, don't shoot. And what I think might be going on here is I think that's probably the mob crack dealer's accountant. And he's at the crack house. He doesn't touch it, but he definitely does have to work with it just to make sure that the accounting's done right. Because even if you're going to sell crack, that guy right there needs to keep the books for you. I know I'm being a little ridiculous, but I do love the soundtrack in this game. It's quite funny and very 80s, 90s. So go ahead and listen for like 45 seconds, and I'll come back and talk more about this weirdness.
Change magazine! Change magazine!
The music is just so jazzy and then so cheery, but now we go into the early 90s delicatessen. Clearly, this was probably somewhere in New York City. I don't know where any of these photographs come from. I know they're probably real places because this does look like a real place. And that lottery sign in the top left corner, I think it might say New York. But there is a decent amount of interactability, and that's not a word, interactiveness in the actual level because you can shoot all the things on the shelves and they do blow up. So the makers of this at Taito did a lot of work to make this a really interesting, unique, and dynamic game. It's just that it aged so terribly. If you played this in 92, you probably thought it was great, but now you see all these ridiculous mustaches and polo shirts and khakis and 90s suits, and it just sends you back to a time and place, and now it just looks 100% ridiculous. But I do love this just random deli, and now there's going to be people riding through with a motorcycle, and the boss of this level is a gigantic dude with a ponytail and a leather jacket. I think it might be a duster. Maybe it's a little too short for duster. That would be even better. But it's just incredibly dumb. But I love that sometimes. Games don't always need to be serious. Clearly, Under Fire is a little bit of both. I don't know if the developers were trying to make this tongue-in-cheek or it just happened that way organically, because obviously it was made in Japan and there was probably some stereotypical presumptions about what America was like and what we wore and what we did. And, you know, they're not that too far off, but they're not too close either. But the game does a great job of mixing things up. You know, first we were in a carnival, then we were in a crack house, then we were in a deli. Now we're in some sort of police vehicle and we're shooting on the go. And the hardware at least can move around a lot of sprites at once, because I will say, for being digitized, these people do look like people. So we have to give the developers and artists credit for making this game look good, because in 92 we were not playing stuff like this at home. Of course, the problem with these type of graphics is they don't age as well as some other 2D sprite work does. And of course, being genre to the 90s, it's always going to look a little bit aged. But I love all the cars. And soon we're going to go to the airport and you'll see even older American cars, things that I remember from my childhood, and it is spectacular. But the game will transition from this level, and now we have this really nice sprite scaling, and obviously those are not polygons on the left and the right. But Taito does a really good job of making them look like they're 3D and giving a really nice sense of scale. So as dumb as this game is thematically, technically it's still a pretty relatively good execution, and I gotta give it a thumbs up for that. Credit where credit is due. And I absolutely love this boss battle coming up here. It is so ridiculous. It reminds me of Maximum Overdrive, the Stephen King movie, and I'll explain why it reminds me of that in a second, or maybe the gun truck from Sonic Adventure 2. But you're gonna see here that the opponent that we're facing is a giant 18-wheeler. But there's nobody driving it. It is driving itself. This is the ghost truck from Maximum Overdrive. Something happened and this truck's come to life. Sure, human beings pop up from time to time, but this truck is driving on its own. There is a sentient pickup truck in Under Fire. It is monstrous and it is coming right for you. I know that's not what they intended, but it's what I'm seeing. And moving to Airport Escape, the final round in the game before the final boss, I love seeing this. All these old pickup trucks, all these old crappy late 80s cars, because even though this game was released in 92, I'm sure a lot of this photographic assets came from the late 80s, because this Volvo here, my parents had this Volvo. I still like the body shape of that Volvo. If I could find a cheap one in good shape, I'd probably buy it as a second car, because I just love that boxy Volvo or that Honda there. I feel bad shooting them in a joking way. But yeah, that's Under Fire. Mechanically, it's a very competent light gun game that's a ton of fun. Aesthetically, it is hilarious. I love it because I think it is stupid, but I think it's stupid in all the right ways, the same way that a really cheesy B movie is stupid. But if you're looking for another light gun game to play, you've probably never heard of Under Fire. It takes about 30 minutes to finish, and of course, if you're emulating it like I am here on MAME, it is absolutely free, so what do you have to lose? Sure to that, hit like and subscribe, ring that notification bell, I appreciate it. Leave me a comment and tell me what you think, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.